All right, our first speaker is John Choate, and he is an accomplished hands-on manufacturing and supply chain leader with over 30 years of experience from his start as a global USAF Logistics Combat Services Officer to helping OEM and EMS companies, large and small, boost revenue through operational excellence by world-class practices. He has spearheaded initiatives to grow revenue, optimize manufacturing and supply chain processes through Lean Six Sigma practices, reducing costs through inventory optimization, enhance team productivity, and introduce a new digital technology, cloud, ERP, and AI, while improving on-time client delivery. So John has experience turning around struggling operations, including offshore factories, causing major revenues losses. So John was recently accepted as a key contributor and member to the AZAI Policy Committee for his expertise. We are excited to have John share his insights on manufacturing excellence with us today. Let's give John a hand. He's a SCORE volunteer.
So just to let you know, I actually use AI. That's the short version. So the interesting thing for all of you that are in small businesses, and you're saying, oh yeah, small business, just to let you know, it can be a wild ride. I was in an IPO at zero. 3 years later, we were 800 million in 10 countries. I set up the whole international team of 10 countries. So it's possible. So I got a call and said, let's go to Minnesota. And I said, are you crazy? I don't want to go to Minnesota. They says, oh no, you're going to go do this. And then it was a wild ride. So in that 36 months, we were the first person in manufacturing in Wall Street that ever had 36 months of consecutive profitability, 100% on-time delivery and quality. So it can be a wild ride. And for the ladies out there, my wife is actually a jewelry manufacturer. She started 4 years ago. And she said, I want to do jewelry manufacturing. And he says, okay, this is going to be interesting. She's now in 12 countries, got her a 3D printer, and I'm teaching her AI for marketing. So it's all possible. So with that, I wanted to sort of give you an idea of my background. I started in the Air Force. I was a Air Force officer. I was a logistics combat officer. That's how I learned manufacturing. And then I got out and I started working with this no-name company called Corning Glass. And I helped take over the fiber optics business worldwide. So I've come up from supervisor, manager, vice president, director, and hey, you out on the floor, go do it. So I've actually worked for 7 different countries. I've been an expat in 2. I've lived and worked in Mexico 5 years and China for a year. So it's sort of my blood. So what I've done with this presentation, I really want to make it informative and fun. You can say, hey, I don't agree with it or whatever, but guess what? You're probably in the best place at the right time for manufacturing. True statistic is I just found this out. So you've heard about nearshoring, onshoring, and that. I'm going to tell you. Well, right now, Arizona is number 2 in the nation for onshoring, $60 billion. So you're at the right place at the right time. So if you're going to see, so first thing in manufacturing, we got to get on quality here. It's been interesting for me. My last company I was with, it was an Indian company, but my last 6 months, it's sort of like learning Arizona because I was part of the business development team. Sort of sounds funny, but that can make a lot of interesting thing. So I really got to learn Arizona. So coming from California, somebody one day said, oh, I'm from Glendale. And I says, wow, you drove a long day. I thought it was Glendale, California. And he said, no, it's Glendale. I said, okay. So this has been really interesting for me, and I think it's going to be informative for you because I sort of take a whiteboard approach, and that's if you think about that. And by the way, we're going to talk about AI in manufacturing. I've been doing AI more years than I can think about because I was in machine vision and vision, and I've been using it in marketing and that. So it's nothing more than a business tool. So think about how you can use this new tool to transform your business. So hopefully, what am I doing here?
Should be the button on the right.
On the right?
Yep. The little pin button on the edge.
On the edge over here?
Yep.
So you can tell I was not a technician on the floor in manufacturing. That was like, keep him up front. So this is just a little, I'm a SCORE mentor. And Alan hits my hand half the time. He says, you're not a consultant, you're a mentor. And so the idea is to instill information to you. I specialize in business transformation, supply chain, advanced manufacturing, and technology innovation. So that to me is really cloud, ERP, and AI. Done some of the other crazy stuff, but that's where I'm sort of focused right now in my world. Oops, wrong way. So for the presentation, what I want to do is sort of an education. You've been here, but I'm a global guy. So I get more calls from different countries all over the world. You've got to think globally. You've just got to think that way today. And by the way, think about this. There are 198 countries out there, and all of those are marketing, manufacturing, or suppliers. And I'm going to tell you some tricks that I learned in my career. And then we're going to start bringing it down, talking about the trends. And so you'll see how those trends can be impacting you if you have not only your small business, but you might be wanting to partner with a larger company. And by the way, I've been a small business liaison from a big corporation to a small. So there's a lot of neat concessions that you can get as a small business that allows you to get into that business model. Then we're going to talk about the 5 main reasons. There's a lot of reasons why people are coming to Arizona, but I'm only going to touch up on the 5 main reasons. And if you want to have a fun experience, I had to move a factory once from California. I met the who's who of America entertaining and dining me. I thought I was going on a date. And they were like, oh, would you like this? Oh, no, we'll lower your taxes. Seriously. Oh, you won't have to pay anything for 20 years. So that's the reality. And so that's a competitive thing that our economic councils go through to try to bring more business into the state. Then we're going to get down to looking at Arizona, and this becomes sort of educational. And then we're going to look at the demographics of Arizona. And you'll think, oh, I'm in Greater Phoenix. And by the way, that was a mistake that a lot of the marketing people made. When they did their demographics, they only looked at Phoenix. They did not look at Greater Phoenix. And that changed the whole perspective of what's going on. Then we're going to talk about the economic impact. So really we're talking about people, and we're talking about size and the contribution. Then we're going to talk about issues and solutions. So I'm a big one. If I have an issue, what I want to do in this presentation, give you some hints and ideas about what a possible solution might be to mitigate that issue going on. Then, everybody's talking about AI, right? So did you know that AI started in 1940? And it wasn't only until 56 that the term AI was coined, and it was because it was playing a chess game. And they said, oh, this is different. So there's been some winners of AI in that, but now it's becoming the big thing. Everybody, so how many have played with ChatGPT? How many have Barb? How many Claude 2? Claude 2 is a new version. I'm actually a tester. 10 times more powerful. You can put up to 5 attachments on it. And if you're a marketing person, I did it for another group. I put the 5 documents in less than 1 minute. I generated their 1-page marketing document. I said, analyze all the collateral, put it together and do this. And then the wife likes to test me and she says, I got one for you. I want you to do this in characters. And I went in and it summarized the entire company portfolio of her in 115 characters. I made AI do that for me. So there's a lot of possibilities. So I'm going to talk to you at AI. I'm also on the AI Council. I'm on the Policy Council. We just made recommendations and we're now analyzing all of the craziness going on in the world with AI and guardrails and that. Then I'm going to talk to you. How many have heard about the CHIP Act? So it's not only semiconductors, so I'm just going to do a high level with that. And then I'm going to talk to you, show you about resources. And you're lucky in this state, there's a lot of resources there. So with that, this is how the United States looks as you look at manufacturing. So I was overseas, logistics officer, then I came back, and my first job was Corning Glass, and somehow I got to be in the global guy. They says, oh, John's been overseas, and then guess what? I was on the global team, but all of a sudden they said, wait a minute, I don't want to do this. But now if we come down to US, this is how the regions are distributed. Now, the significant thing is in the last year, Arizona has become one of the 5 manufacturing hubs of the United States. That's significant. So if you talk about the Silicon Valleys or Chicago or Dallas and stuff like that, that is now what we're now designated. So that's why you're seeing a lot of attention. You've got the big semiconductor factory going on. You've got Intel doing about $2 billion. There's just a lot of stuff happening here. So they were down there. So I want to take you now to, this is the world. And by the way, I'm going to show you the top 10, but I want to tell you that the trends change daily based upon the geoeconomics going on. So if you want to talk about supply disruption, of my 10 years in the Air Force, 6 was in combat. So if you want to talk about supply chain disruption, talk about, well, I just blew up your supply and then, okay, how am I going to get this? So different perspective, and you have to look at it. So this was actually done about 5 days ago, and guess what? Number 10 is now number 1. That's how fast it's changing out there. And guess what it is? And we'll get to it, number 10. Cybersecurity. Okay? So if you're manufacturing, that's a biggie. So let's start. Increased adoption of automation and robotics. Why is that? And you're going to find out. It's not only in the United States, it's overseas. I just actually was down in Mexico for 6 months. It's because of the lack of skill, and people are also, sounds funny, but they're trying to automate with robotics critical steps in their manufacturing process, but they're also doing it to increase their productivity and, interesting enough, their safety for their employees. Okay? Second one, this is fun, 3D printing. You know who is the biggest 3D printer? What industry is? Got a guess? Nike. Retail started a decade ago. Almost all of your shoes are 3D printed. This is fun. So I was working at SAP, and in Stryker, like Stryker Medical, 70% of their implants are 3D printed. You have to go through a special process in medical and get the adhesives and the additives certified, but it's becoming a big thing. You go to Boeing up in Seattle, they got a whole block that's going to be 3D printing. So think about it. What is 3D printing going to do if you have that capability? You're going to shorten your supply chain. You're going to be able to go print what you need to maybe do that part. My wife does jewelry. I'm teaching her how to do medallions, bronze medallions. So think about that when you think about 3D printing. So don't narrow yourself to think, oh, gee, I only can do this. You go to a 3D printing conference and you'll find out all the fun things are coming up to. Here's a new interesting one. How many of you have heard the acronym ESG? You heard it? What's the industry most impacted by ESG? Financial. Because they're being mandated on how they can invest to certain companies based upon their ESG. I had one guy bond to me more for an hour about listening to all the complaints about ESG. So you're talking about environmental, social. So think about it in sourcing. Big companies are very sensitive to where they're sourcing their product out of in the world, based upon, labor laws, how they're being, children, everything. So that, and then you got your governance, and these are the rules. So that's a big impact, and it's being changing very significantly. So I read tons of articles in a day. Advanced materials, because of the technology advancing, you're going to come up with new materials. So when I got out of the military, funny story, first thing I started in fiber optics, I called my dad and I said, Dad, I got a job with Corning Glass. And he said, okay, let's see, you got a college degree in biology. You were an Air Force officer and you're making plates? I said, no, Dad, I'm making fiber optics. And he said, okay, I don't know what it is. I said, it's a fish line that you can talk to the fish. And he said, that's great. He was a fisherman. So he understood that. So he was okay with that. So fiber optics, when I started, everybody joked about fiber optics. Now, I was part of the core team that helped take over the fiber optics market. And guess what? Fiber optics is a way of life now. So when I was working at Corning, when we talked about fiber optics in the defense industry, this is no joke. If we took all of the cabling where we could do fiber optics, we would lighten the load of the plane 12,000 pounds by going to fiber optics. So new technology, new areas. Digital transformation. This is a biggie. So how many know what Industry 4.0 is? You know what that is? So Industry 4.0 is also advanced manufacturing by definition. People confuse advanced manufacturing with digital manufacturing. They're actually about the same, but it's really advanced manufacturing, but then you're using digital tools. And I see you taking notes, but we're recording that, so I'm sure you're going to be able to get it. And then so I kid about this. My wife says, you put 2 sevens. No, they were tied. So you've got supply chain optimization. So if you grew up in materials management, you're going to say, okay, materials inventory, we're going to talk about how many turns or whatever is going on. Now it's optimized. So if you want to have a fun project manufacturing, try to optimize $250 million of inventory over 12 dealerships and 5 distribution centers in 6 months. So we did that. That was an interesting challenge in Kubota. Then, okay, so you've got onshoring, nearshoring, reshoring, farshoring. Right now, we're leading on onshoring and reshoring into Arizona. How many think they know what nearshoring is? Okay? Oh, we got somebody in the back. So if I told you that Czechoslovakia, Vietnam, Cambodia are near sourcing, it's by definition, it's the culture and the language defines nearshoring. It's not the geographics. Most people, when I say nearshoring, they say Mexico. Said wrong answer. Skills. This is a big issue coming up now is with what I call the new mixed model of working. Are they on site? Are they remote or whatever? This is an area that is really being heavily addressed, not only by some of our sponsors here, but also by ASUs and other. And then you've got the cybersecurity, then you got the advanced manufacturing where you see the robotics and that. So, excuse me. 5 main reasons: tax incentives, lowering operating costs, reduce regulations, helping tap into the skilled workforce, and logistics. So when you think of logistics, think about, so how many of you have ever used a free trade zone? Okay? If you haven't, look into it. Actually, cities now in Arizona are creating free trade zones because of the global suppliers. So it gives you a lot of tax advantages to have stuff shipped into a free trade zone and then bring it across. So this is the main reasons here. And so this is interesting. So what I've done here on the right, these are the 10 top manufacturing industries in Arizona. Okay? The top 3, aerospace, semiconductor, and actually medical device are 1, 2, and 3 as far as revenue generated in this state for manufacturing. Now, a little trick. So 60 years ago, they started with the SIC code. Then they went with the NAICS. There's one in Europe called NACE, N-A-C-E. With that code, not only does it identify you, but it helps you in your marketing and your sourcing, get this, in 196 nations, if you know how to do it. People, I tell them that and they're like, oh yeah. And I said, been there, done that. This is fun. So this by definition are the manufacturing demographics of Arizona. So you've got Greater Phoenix, you've got Tucson, Yuma, Flagstaff, Prescott, and then the different areas. And this is where you're going to see manufacturing centered throughout the state. So look at that. So, you know, you might be in Greater Phoenix, but think about alliances or partnerships that you might do in another area of the state, as well as look at what is their reach. So when you look at an alliance, always look at what their reach is. So economic impact. So manufacturing is really on the list. It contributes almost 12% of the GDP of Arizona and the United States. And the significant on the wages, of course, everybody's complaining I'm not getting paid enough, but by definition, the wages are actually around 10,000 higher than the average employment rate in the state. So manufacturing is becoming now a premium area to look. So that could be an issue. Exporting, big deal. You've got big companies, you've got the Boeings, you've got the Honeywells, the Raytheons here, so a lot of exporting. But by the way, I'm actually dealing with some small companies in SCORE that are exporting. They're importing and exporting. So just think about what your model is. And then investments. This is crazy. There's a lot of money coming in, and we'll get it also into the CHIPS Act. So there's a lot of money available to you as a small business. And the one thing that I do say is, look at how you classify yourself. Are you a woman? Are you just, minority? Are you a vet? Use those because it helps you in how you classify and also how you can do business. Not only in the state, but literally in the United States. So what I've done here is I've hit the issues, and then what I've done is sort of this is a way to mitigate it. So you've got skilled labor, supply chain disruptions, new technologies, access to capital. So in the red is the issue. And then on the right side, I've got one. I've got how to think about mitigating it. Now, another thing, this sounds funny with the small business, ask your team. You'd be amazed at the solutions that your team has or the things that they're doing. Compliance, this is a big one. Actually, we just, yesterday we got the first advance notice of the AI, the executive order on AI. So now we're trying to sort that and figure out what the compliance is going to be on that. Cybersecurity. In manufacturing, the biggest issue when you're talking about integration of equipment is going to be cybersecurity, because that's going to be a data breach, potential data breach. So look at that. Sustainability. We did this in one company. We started looking at energy efficiency, different lights and everything else. we reduced our energy costs 40% over 13 facilities just by looking at it. Another trick, use your suppliers. They're experts in their area. Ask them, hey, is there a different way that I can go approach something? And I did this at one company. This is how I'm sort of out of the box. As the head of the materials group, I put an 800 number in my purchasing group and said, any supplier that called me, we immediately write up an engineering change request. We did 10 patents in 1 year, and we cut our lead time about 20% from the idea because we couldn't get it through our engineering group. So it was when you call in, it's an 800 number, you immediately write up an engineering change request, has to go through the change board, and we review it as a company. Made a major difference in the company. Exports, this is interesting. So you've heard of 3PL, right? How many have dealt with 4PL? How about this? 5PL, next wave. And this is where logistics providers are going to go all the way from the factory floor through the entire supply chain. It's on the drawing board right now within the next decade. Okay, opportunity areas. My favorite topic, AI. So this is sort of the heavy hitters. So think about it. Think about what you can do with it. Predictive maintenance, you've got equipment. So I started out as a maintenance logistics officer. My biggest nightmare was preventative maintenance. I wish I would have had an AI tool. I had to do the old hand and Excel spreadsheet to develop my program for 1,200 pieces of equipment on a base. But guess what? Took our rate out of sight. Quality control, you're using vision. Inventory optimization. So I told you at Kubota, the little challenge that they gave me, we reduced and optimized $250 million in 6 months and dropped the inventory $50 million. By optimizing it, and then we increased our velocity in customer service. Scheduling. Key to any manufacturing company is planning, demand planning. That's how I started my career. So look at the planning tools out there, because that's going to be key on how you launch not only your purchasing area, but also your factory. Okay? Then you're going to look at robotics, and there's all kinds of fun robotics out there. My wife is driving me and the animals nuts. She just bought a little shark, and I'm watching the animals watch this all over. And she says, oh, look, another friend for you. And then design automation. This is becoming a biggie, not only in design, but in programming. I've seen people develop programs in minutes now. So look at, if you're looking at AI, look at the type of program or the area. So if you're in marketing, supply chain, PLM or whatever, they are changing daily. So look for the top ones out there. Big thing, this sounds funny, predicting customer needs. You can use AI to go in and analyze your customer database and look at their ordering patterns. It helps you set inventory in that. So that's an opportunity area. And then personalizing your marketing. So one of the things I'm doing at SCORE, Alan will probably get me, and I'm acting as a consultant now, but I actually will do a SWOT analysis using AI and look at the areas of opportunity and threats, and then look at how can I mitigate those stuff in a matter of minutes. So, big thing, and this is not only in small business, this is any large business. Applies too. Think about where you're going to use AI or any area. Ask your team, what makes sense? Where are you going to get the most return? Where's the fastest? Then, this is interesting. Get your employee buy-in. So right now, the biggest spike in AI was 2021 globally. Right now, it's gone down. And less than 40% of the people in the United States use some form of AI. So a lot of people, I was actually on a meeting and the guy says, oh God, Skynet. I said, well, I know you watch the Terminator series, obviously, but there is a lot of paranoia about AI and robotics. And you're going to get all kinds of hype and propaganda, so you need to get through that. But look at any project you do, you set goals, you set strategic goals, KPIs, or you set metrics. Then you look at how you're going to integrate it, you pilot it, and then you gradually build upon it. That's how you're going to be successful, not only with AI, but any project, really. CHIPS Act. Now, this is a biggie that a lot of people, they think it's only semiconductor. It's actually a lot of areas. The significance of the CHIP Act is it's a way to actually bring a lot of business, chip industry back to the United States. They're hoping about 50% between now and 2030. We're talking about here 52 billion. I've heard numbers up to 200 billion now. But there's where you got to contact your local sources, ACA, MEP, chamber and that, and find about what your eligibility is. And right now there is a window until I think it's January, early February on taking a lot of applications under the CHIP program. So it's something to clearly look at. Resources. I'm a member of SCORE, but we got ACP here, we got MEP here. There's a lot of resources available to you. Use them. So I was at a vet small business conference, and the thing is, don't think like you're the lone stranger. The more you can get information, the more and faster it's going to help you in the success of your business. And with that, that's me at the bottom. And I like the airline. If you really liked the flight, I'm John. And if you didn't, I'm Bob. So any questions? I don't know. Okay, any questions for me?
You have to repeat them though.
Okay. Come on, manufacturing and you don't have any questions? Come on. Oh, a couple in the back.
Hi, I'm just curious about that giant semiconductor, the Taiwan semiconductor plant going in over there. Like, when is that going to launch? And can you talk a little bit about what
Oh yeah, so
Repeat it.
So the question is about TSMC, which is the largest, one of the largest semiconductor plants, and it's going to be on the west side. So they were hoping to do this year. They ran into issues on skill, but also if you didn't see the hidden stuff, there was a lot of hidden stuff going on between the administration and Taiwan on the economic benefits. They're hoping to bring it online next year. There's been some chatter going back and forth about the skills. We're going to bring skills in that. So it's sort of like been also a political football, but that's where it is right now. And then there's actually two phases to it. So in parallel with TSMC, people don't know that Intel is going to do a $2 billion expansion in their business. And so there was a delegation from Arizona, went over to Taiwan, and they're talking to 14 businesses in Taiwan, not only to bring them here, but because of the strategic implications about if there was a war between Taiwan and China. There was somebody else that had a, yeah.
I'm familiar with ChatGPT, but as far as AI and all those other applications, I mean, someone that's not, I'm in a skilled trade, so I'm not into technology, but I do see how it would be relevant. Where do I even, like,
Start?
yeah.
No, it's
Repeat the question.
so the question is, you got to excuse my rephrasing. So I hear all this hype about AI, and all I hear about ChatGPT, and by the way, I'm a tester in ChatGPT, is if I do that, how do I get started? This sounds funny, Google it. Do you know that there are like 6 or 7 free courses online on AI? So go in and look at that and say, I want to learn about AI. Now, the key is, let me clarify this. AI is really artificial intelligence that applies to machines. The stuff that you're talking about today is called generative AI. And that's where it's going to take stuff, it's going to answer questions. My wife says, I hate AI. It doesn't give me the answer. I said, well, be nice to it and how you ask the question. And by the way, I beat up AI all the time. I'll say, I don't like your answer. This is garbage. Why are you doing this? And it apologizes to me. So there are a lot of free courses online. So look at those courses that are available to you online and look at it. I actually have created some presentations where I will have broken it down to all of the segments, whether it's program management, supply chain, manufacturing, and that. And I will tell you at that moment, what are the top AI programs out there? So if you have a specific focus you want to do. But this sounds funny. You start with Google, go in and say, I want to look at free AI courses and I want to learn about it. And that's how to get started.
I like the word made in USA.
Yes.
What is the percent of a widget made in the USA, assembled in the USA, bought in China, put together? What is when you can classify your product as made in the USA?
Good question. I'm going to have to get back to that one because it changes by the country and the trade agreement that you're doing. So the question was made in USA, okay? So the question is what the content is. And you really have to look at also the trade agreement, what the stipulation is, because the government will make different conditions of what made USA is and where you have to put it on the labeling, put it on the box or anything else like that. So the key thing is, I'll take it as a question, I'll go look at it and see if I can find it. But normally it'll go by the country. You'll have a trade agreement in the factory and your logistics people will say, okay, I can say it's, even though it was made in China or it was made in Czechoslovakia and Vietnam, it says, how can this be made in the USA?
Okay.
So, anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, you talked a lot about your international experience and obviously covered a lot of the positives of doing business in Arizona. It's kind of with that global view, what are the challenges in Arizona to doing business here, and what can be the things that we would look at and solve in helping Arizona succeed?
Well, I think that, see, Jen keeps me, sorry, I am trainable, believe it. So for a manufacturer, I think that the biggest thing that I see, not only Arizona, but any company, what is your vision? How do you project your brand and what it's going to do? And then here's a big one. What is the value proposition that you're going to bring to the marketing place? Okay, so here's one for you. I use so we got golfers out there and I call it the PAR. It's called PAR. Problem, action, result. But it's not really result, it's actually solution. So you might get a result is, I lowered my cost 12%, but your real issue was you wanted to be in the top 5 in the market, so you needed to go past 12%. You met your goal. So look at what your solution is. It's very different. So look at any company. What's your value proposition? What are you bringing to the table? How do you differentiate yourself within the marketplace, your specialty? What's your niche? The biggest one that's been challenged is, if it's fun, everybody, I was telling them, I was talking to a company and they says, so you're also coaching your wife? And they said, how's that? And I said, I'm doing better with the company. And so you look at that perspective. It's like, what's your vision? How's your organizational structure? So when I've set up manufacturing things, first thing is, what's my value? What's my product? What's my next thing I look at? How is my organization structured, but how is it for growth? So I gave you that example. If you would have told me when I started this company 3 years later, we're going to be 800 million in 10 countries, I wouldn't have believed you. So I had a very visionary CEO. So I made a scaling model. And it was, at this level of growth, I need this in resources. This level, I need this, and I need this. So you think it through, and also think about your contingencies. In the military, we always thought about it. My first thing on supply chain disruption, I was at Minot Air Force Base, of all God places to be. Guess what I had? A train derailment for my base. And I learned they have to write off the whole train, even though that didn't get my boxcar. And then I had to figure out, do that. So after that, always think the worst case scenario. Never assume it's going to go right. And if you don't think more and more that way today in this environment, you might end up with a lot of stuff. I was doing Honeywell down in Mexico, and I said, you just need to look at second source, third source in that. And they're like, whatever. And by the way, you can use the NAICS code for sourcing. So go in it. So if you got a prime right now as your supplier, find out what their NAICS code is and go in the directory and find all the companies that have that. And that's going to give you a different way to source. Yeah.
Would water be one of our big challenges here? And how do small companies compete with the Intels for water?
Oh, no, fair question. So the question is water, okay, because depending on what type of manufacturing you're doing, I come from electromechanical. Actually, Arizona has one of the best recycling programs going on. I learned what pink pipes were all about. I never knew what that was about. So if you don't know, look at ASU. They have an active water group there to look at how you might better, how you're going to use your water. And they all have different mandates upon it. In fact, the new plant, the new semiconductor plant, we'll see it when I believe it, they basically said, all the water we're going to do, we're going to recycle it 100%.
And so they have a project they call OC Water Project. You know, they just recycling and we treat the water plants.
Yeah.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah.
Maybe a little loud. And so they have a project they call it OC Water Projects to
Salinization?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're recycling the water and reuse it again after they use it.
Yeah, they're talking about salt water, converting it over. Actually, it was interesting because the water issue has come up time and time again. Every economic council meeting that I've gone on, they've always had a water official from ASU there to talk to this issue. So if you have any questions, ASU is sort of the central point. How am I doing for time? Anything else? Oh.
Thanks, John. I had a question. You put all those resources up there. There seems like there's just a ton. I'm trying to acquire a small manufacturer. I'm wondering what resources should I look at to partner with that can help me?
So, not because he's Alan's our chapter. So you call SCORE and you ask for a mentor, not necessarily me, and you say, here's what I want to do. And we have people that are good and skilled in acquisition that can help you.
To answer his question, next week at 10 West, out in Tucson at the Tucson Convention Center, if you can make it there, you'll be able to get all your questions answered with regards to that.
Yeah. So the question was on, you want to acquire a business. So, by the way, acquisition is probably one of the top number one reasons for growth. There's only so much you can grow, and then all of a sudden your CEO comes in like we did and says, oh, by the way, we want to double in next year, and you're looking at him with this blank stare and saying, right, so what are you going to do? You're going to acquire, okay? So good question. So acquisition. Which conference?
The 10 West Conference.
Okay.
TCC in Tucson next week. And the venture capitalists, all of that. Everybody's going to be there.
Yeah. So thank you. Any others? Oh, wait a minute. We had to get this in.
This is related to workforce development.
Right.
So tell us about how can we put like education,
So the
industry, and a network that can enhance this issue which everybody talks about.
good question. So the question is skill forcing, skill up. Okay. So besides looking at your resources, look at identifying what you need in your skill. So it sounds funny, when I set up Mexico and China, the number one skill they wanted to speak English. So I developed an English program for them. They might want to look at robotics. So think about this. Your suppliers are great trainers. Look at your suppliers and how they can teach them on the equipment, because anybody knows how to use it to them. There's also different programs. I know ASU is starting a new program, and I'm sure MEP and ACP also have programs going on too.
How do we work together?
Well, good question. So the whole concept between ERP was to bring them together. Well, now you're seeing more functionality silos. So the key thing is get training programs where they're going to talk about integration, and they're going to have also the functional skill.
I think, so I worked for German companies for 20 years, okay? The key issue with them was you were being, the company would train the prospective employee, and they would have a program with the university concurrently, because then the company has some influence over the training program, okay, to make sure that they're working together. And I know a German company out of there in North Carolina has done this for years. Okay, it's a huge company. I can't remember the name right now. It starts with an S. But what's it?
Bosch, Siemens. Siemens
Has done this for years, very successfully. And what happens also when they train them, they have those people stay with them a lot longer, which is a major issue today as far as engagement. Okay, because they have trained them. Maybe they help monetarily with their education, but they're on the same line with the university and with your company. So,
Yeah, and a couple other things I would add. So have you heard about train the trainer? Okay, find somebody that you know that's good in your company that does it. Guess who actually ends up as train the trainer in most companies? But that's one thing, is you identify a resource. Another one is professional societies. A lot of people are having problems because big companies aren't paying for it. You can negotiate with the professional societies on what kind of programs they have. It could be lean, it could be robotics, depending on that professional society. They have training programs. SCORE has a ton of webinar programs. I record them all the time and watching because it's changing, the environment's changing so much. So whether you're, as I call it, hard skill you're looking for or soft skill, look at that. That's going to become a big factor, especially with robotics and how people are. So look at companies. So people don't know it. If you're supplying to a major corporation, say a Rockwell or a Boeing and that, ask them what supplier development programs they have, because they have them. I will tell you, they get marked on it. So find out who that liaison is in the big corporation and find out what they have on supplier development. I was on a major issue in Mexico, and the first thing I said was, who's your supplier development guy? And they brought somebody in to help the supplier, and there were rules, different rules for a small business versus a large business. How are we doing, Jane?
One more?
Oh, we got to let, you already had a couple, so we got to let it.
I just wanted to contribute to the question about AI as a technology partner in manufacturing. It's really our responsibility to figure out how to use it and make your use of technology smarter and faster. So I think sometimes it's hidden in the background of a tool, but it really is our responsibility to figure out how we can eliminate manual steps and kind of move forward as technology is presented and determine ways to use it. So you may not believe that AI is leading in a tool, but there may be lots of ways of using it. So you can always ask your technology partners, how are you using AI? How is it benefiting you? Have you thought of these things? So just wanted to
Oh, no, it's a good point. So if you're familiar, so the question was AI and the use of AI. So if you understand that we're now in Industry 4.0, and Industry 0 started in 1850. So we're now in Industry 4.0, and guess what? So you've got AI, you've got robotics, you've got Internet of Things and all of that. So I tell people, if you're having fun with Industry 4.0, and by the way, there's Supply Chain 4.0, there's Manufacturing 4.0, that's advanced manufacturing. All of those have the vertical, and on the horizon is Industry 5.0. So if you think you're having fun now, 5.0 is how do you properly interface and play with robots? And that's actually being thought of in design. So it's part of the evolution, and like she said, it's nothing more than a tool. You got to get that. It's nothing more than an enabler. So the more you think about it, whether you're IoT, blockchain, AI, and that, it's going to help you in your business. So figure out how that tool, that toolbox, and those tools are going to help you. Oh. So I'll be around through the break and that. So if you have any more questions, and I have my SCORE business cards and any more questions. Thank you.